All right, scholars, we are reading the story called A World of Art. You should read along with me. You could find this on page 133 in your My Book. If you could turn to that now or pause this video while you go find your My Book, get to the page and let's read along. This story is realistic fiction. That means that it is not true, but it could be true. These are stories that should seem familiar and they can happen in your real life. Before we start, this is about a second grade class, just like you all, going to an art museum on a field trip. So I want you to take some time, pause the video now, and maybe make a prediction. What are some of the things that you think the class will see? Maybe write about some of the things you think you would like to see if we went on a field trip to an art museum. Pause the video, take a couple of minutes to write 1 or 2 complete sentences, make a prediction, and then we'll rejoin the lesson. Okay, let's start reading the story, A World of Art. Read along with me, or pause it and read it to yourself. Make sure you're listening closely. Today, my class took a field trip to an art museum. Mr. Lyons, our art teacher, said that creating art is one way people can share their culture. At the museum, Mr. Lyons showed us a mask from Africa that was carved from wood. "Look at this amazing mask, kids," Mr. Lyons said. Masks are one part of African culture. Food, clothes, art, music, and beliefs are all parts of a group's culture. Look closely. What does this mask remind you of? "I think it's a cat," I said. Let's pause the video here. Take out your notebooks and maybe write some notes to yourself. Let's stop and jot. I want you to think about, how does Mr. Lyons feel about art? Think about what we've read so far. Read it over to yourself. And think about what from the text can tell you how he feels about art. When you are done writing some notes, play the video again and we'll continue. Let's continue the story. Next, we looked at art from Mexico called Alebrijes. And I apologize if my pronunciation is poor, which I think it is. But let's try it again. Next, we looked at art from Mexico called Alebrijes. Mr. Lyons told us these sculptures of animals are always painted bright colors because bright colors are part of everyday life in Mexico. I saw a pretty carving of an elephant with butterfly wings. Then Mr. Lyons pointed to a bright green panther. When he asked what it reminded of us, Marcus and I both said a cat at the same time. Then we started laughing. Finally, Mr. Lyons asked if every piece of art is the same. We all said, no way. At the same time, Mr. Lyons smiled and said, every piece of art is different and special in its own way. That makes it unique, just like every person is unique. So again, let's pause, stop and jot some notes. What is the lesson that Mr. Lyons wants the kids to learn? All right, scholars, now that we have finished reading, take some time, read it over a second time to yourselves, and then I want you to write about it. The question is, what did you learn about African masks and Mexican alebrijes? And use your own words. So don't just copy down sentences from the book. I want you to reread it, and then in your own words, share in maybe 4 or 5 sentences some things that you learned about African masks and Mexican alebrijes. Once you are done, upload your work, take a picture of it, text it to me. I can't wait to see what you came up with.